All right. Do we have ignition? Tom, can you hear me? I see Tom there. Hopefully, let's check all systems. Voice seems to be working. Let me know if it's not. All right, good. I don't know why it wouldn't load initially. All right, guys, so I'm going to jump right into the show. Obviously, there are people that will probably join up as we go, and I'll pause a little bit to get people caught up to what's going on. But I know a lot of people watch these things after it's recorded. So I'm going to go for the glasses just for a little while because it feels good again. Nah, fuck it. I'm not. All right, guys. I want to start. Tonight is the first. We're going to do a kind of a countdown series. So I'm going to do an episode every single night, alive like this. Maybe they'll only be 10 minutes, some of them. But I want to talk to you. I want to do a live episode every night up until August 1st, which is when we are beginning finally, after a lot of planning, our documentary series, Outer Demons. We're doing trailer shoots and probably a good chunk of what will end up being episode 1 in the series. So we're really excited about it. I want to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm also going to go into the Karen Reed case. As particular, I want to talk about the black box. Now, I've learned a lot about this over the last several days, and it's been very, very difficult to come to this information. So, and I have gotten some things wrong, and I always try to do things. I listen, I'm always going to be honest what I have. And if I make a mistake or if I'm given wrong information, I'm going to correct it. So I have some corrections to make tonight. There is still some interesting stuff, though, about the black box. So, but for those of you who were upset by the possibility that you'll like this video, I think. So let's just get right to, got my notes here somewhere, but I want to jump in and talk about the video that's coming up. Hold on one second. All right, I think we're back. All right, so the series that we're doing, it's kind of based on the series I had been doing on the channel, but this is a documentary series, so it's going to be very different. This is basically following. There are two subjects of the series. One is Dave McGrath, who we've talked about a lot before, and the other one is Melanie Perkins McLaughlin. And these two are two people that have investigated crimes that go back, a series of crimes that may be connected, that seem to be connected. This goes back to the 1970s. But what they've uncovered, what they are in the act of uncovering, as the evidence still rolls in, seems to be something that potentially relates to cases that are going on in more recent times and in the present, in a lot of ways. So this is when it comes to accomplices working on predatory crimes. How often does it happen? Now, we tended to think, I think most of us, including me, that it's extremely rare, but maybe it's not. Maybe there's more of these guys working together than we realized. And not only working together, but driven to develop what's called CSAM, another word for child porn, a commercially produced child porn, and possibly protected by some powerful people and institutions. I think it's kind of similar to what the Boston Globe uncovered in the movie Spotlight. But we'll see. I'm not completely convinced of everything. I'm very moved and impressed by what Dave and Melanie have told me so far. But they haven't told me everything. That Dave is sitting on a mountain of stuff that every time you talk to him, something different comes out. And we'll be working for the first time with Melanie on August 1st. And she has just she's told me on the phone of these things, but she's kind of, I think she's been, waiting to see what's the best way to release these things. And I don't know what she's going to tell us on August 1st. And I hope she'll continue to keep working with us after that. But the other thing about this documentary series, and this was at least half the reason why I thought it'd be worth pursuing, is the compelling personal stories of both Melanie and Dave. And I think we'll find this with other people that we discover that are doing these kind of investigations on their own time. Whether they're cops that retire but continue pursuing a case, or someone that's in law enforcement like Dave, but is not pursuing these cases as part of his job, but instead on his own time, or someone like Melanie, who's not in law enforcement and has spent over 30 years pursuing information on this. And what Dave and Melanie have is deeply personal connections to these stories. In Melanie's case, her childhood sweetheart was taken, and that case remains unsolved. And that case alone I think if people understood more about it, is one of the most tantalizing cases in New England crime history. And we have Lizzie Borden, so we got our share of crime cases. It's an incredible case. It's unsolved. It has so much to tell us about these kind of crimes, and this because there seems to be, I don't want to use the word conspiracy, but again, there's a level of accomplices going on possibly, and it might be a situation where they're being protected by some powerful people. So that makes it a very compelling and very interesting case. But this, it's personal because she lost her childhood sweetheart there. It happened right across the street from where she was growing up, from where all her friends, and she lived in the projects where the friends were everything, because there were hundreds of kids growing up together. So she had her entire world rocked by that experience. And then she moved away when she was an early teen. She got taken away from her mother's custody, and went and lived in a better environment and grew up to be very successful in that, she pursued filmmaking, got a degree in it, worked on a lot of shows like Nova and American Experience, but she never forgot her friend. And eventually she turned the camera lens onto that subject and reopened that investigation. I can tell you, as someone who lived in Lawrence and was the same age as Melanie and Andy, when Andy was the kid that went missing, I can tell you that this case was forgotten. And the reason is because the police put out a false report, a deliberate report. They read a statement to the media 6 days after he went missing, basically saying, well, they said that they believed that he was safe and with family. So we all let it go. And then it was forgotten. But Melanie kept this case alive pretty much by herself. And inspired by her, Dave went on to do his work. But Dave, he will say he was inspired by that, but there's a little bit more to it. Dave, as he has an excellent book out called Monster, The Life and Crimes of Wayne Chapman. And in that book, Dave, is very open. He's not someone that'll hide anything that's happened. There were no secrets with Dave. And he was an abuse victim himself when he was a young boy. And Dave is only, I think, 38. So this would have happened, I think, 20 years after the Andy Puglisi story. But these were male predators that were looking for boys. And at the time, there was a group in Massachusetts, or formed in Massachusetts, called NAMBLA, the North American Boy Lovers Association. And it's possible that some of the guys that victimized Dave knew or connected in some ways to some of those other monsters that abducted people in the 70s and possibly in the 80s. And these cases seem to be further, not only the ones in New England connected, but according to Dave's investigations, they seem to be connected to, or at least possibly to, cases that happened famous cases in Detroit that remain unsolved. Those are the Oakland County abductions and murders, and also in Ohio, possibly in Florida, Montana. And he's traveled around and looked into all this stuff. So to me, the cases themselves, you're sitting on these guys are really scratching the tip of an iceberg, but it's also just compelling for the personal stories of the way these guys are kind of haunted by their own inner demons related to these cases. And I think even when talking to Dave, even though he's as completely open, some of the stuff maybe comes out to the surface that he didn't expect. And we think a lot of this stuff will come out in the documentary. So we're doing so the first shoot is on August 1st. And Tom Fleming will be our film crew director. Tom is a very good friend of mine, but he's not on the project for that reason. He's on the project for his expertise. He has not filmed documentaries before, but he's done a lot of film work before. He co-owns a video company down in North Carolina, and he films music videos and commercials and weddings and that kind of stuff. And he also has an experience in the broadcast industry. So he's doing it because he's interested in the case. He also, like me, thinks the material is very compelling. And so he's going to direct a number of other people that are joining our crew, and we're looking for more. So anybody that wants to join our team, if you think you can hold a camera, we'd love to have you, because we want to film these things that we go into. We want to film everything and everybody nonstop. So If 2 cameras have the batteries have to be changed, we're still filming. I mean, so so if you want to join us and you feel like you want to be part of a good team like us, a bunch of good people, or you feel that these cases are very important because they are, or if you feel like you might be part of something big, which you might be, because we could be in the early stages, early for us. I mean, Dave and Melanie have been doing this for many years, but in some ways, we could be in the early stages of something similar to the big scandal uncovered in the Boston Globe series Spotlight that became the basis for the movie The Spotlight. So, you could be part of something big here. But if you're a good person and you like this stuff, we'd like to have you. So we'll be doing this first day of shooting on August 1st. We'll be doing several locations in Lawrence, Mass, and then we'll be going to Bridgewater State Hospital in Bridgewater, Mass. So if you'd like to join us for both of those or either one of those, reach out to us. If there's anything else you'd like to do for us to help out with the project in any way, social media or anything else, reach out for us. And what we hope to do with this trailer is go out there and get funding. We feel pretty optimistic we will. We're going to pitch it to Netflix and to HBO. And we feel once we get proper funding, then we'll be able to get these crew back. And this will be the only time we ever ask anybody on the crew to do anything without compensation, because it's absolutely a priority for us. To me, it's the prime directive that the crew must get paid. I've been in the film industry I've been a part of small film projects. And I'm getting a call. Let's see if I can decline it from my computer. Oh, I managed that. Very good. So, in fact, the person who was just calling me was someone that we've sold scripts together before for thousands of dollars. And she's been a part of a lot of projects, for small film projects that she usually brings me in on at some level of consultation. And I can tell you that I feel really bad for the film crews, particularly the editors. That's a lot of work. But all these guys, they get taken advantage of by people that are trying to make small movies. I don't want maybe taking advantage is too strong, because they don't have money. No, they're not getting paid either. But for the people that went out and did these things, they've learned a skill and they've had to invest in a lot of equipment. They usually had to invest in that skill because they had to go to school. Like Tom got a degree in it. So it's very important to me that these guys get paid. So we're not going to be doing that on August 1st, but after that, anything we do, we won't do it unless we can pay people and pay them promptly. So that's an important part of what we're doing. So as I go forward over the next almost 2 weeks, I should have started this a couple nights ago, but I'm going to slowly start introducing you to some of the other people on the project. We'll talk a little bit more about Dave. And but you guys who follow this channel have already heard me. We've done podcasts together. And we're working on setting one up for Sirius Radio too, for the something called the Law Enforcement Today. It's in the process of being bought up by another law enforcement based program. But so we do a lot of work together, and you've seen us on the channel here. But I want to talk more about him since he's a central focus of it, and also of Melanie. Haven't had a chance to maybe show you guys as much on Melanie, but her Emmy award-winning documentary is called "Have You Seen Andy?" And it's on HBO Max. We're very proud of someone that could win an Emmy from Lawrence. Lawrence is a poor city, and it's kind of hard in our city to find people who have had that kind of success with awards and recognition and that kind of thing. So we're very proud of her. And so I think she's going to be all in with us. She's definitely all in with us on August 1st, and she'll probably be with us going forward. And so we get to really borrow on her extensive experience and expertise, not just in this case, but in making films. So I think, it's going to be some good stuff. I'll put a spotlight one day on Tom Fleming. If he doesn't run away from it. Some guys run to the camera. I don't know. Tom probably runs to the camera, but some people sometimes run away from it. But we want to talk about his experience, the stuff that he likes to work on. He's also a Worcester guy from Worcester, Massachusetts. So we have a lot of Massachusetts people on the channel. So you guys might like that. He lives down in North Carolina now. His wife's a professor in the arts. She might be with us on the shoot too. So it's always nice to have really smart and capable people with us. And we'll talk about Corey, who is Tom's partner. He won't be there with us on August 1st, but his fingerprints are going to be all over that trailer because he's doing it. He's the editor. He's an excellent editor. So we're going to get him in the footage. So let's get to the black box. I may come back if I think of something that I missed, or if somebody comments something about something that I missed on the documentary, because we're going to be doing, but we'll be doing stuff on this, it's as part of this countdown every single day. So I want to get to the black box. So I did a video last week where I basically tried to take the pro side of I did a fictional version of the closing comments for the prosecutor and the defense. So you basically take the Karen Read is guilty versus the Karen Read is innocent argument. And a big part of what I used, maybe a central part for the Karen Read is guilty, was the black box data, because Prosecutor Lally came out, I think about 5 weeks ago, and told the court that they now finally have the electronic data report from the vehicle, the black box, and that it shows Karen Read was in a collision going in reverse at that time. So I wasn't sure what was in. So now we found it very odd. I think all of us find it odd. Why would it take 16 months to get that report? So I spent the last 2 weeks really trying to get as much information as I can on the black box. There's people, there were people on the channel that contributed, that tried to help me too. So a lot of them were critical, of what I said about the black box. So thank you. I mean, push me. That's what I need. That's what I want. We want to get to the truth. I think that's what we all want. But so no, what I had said before, the reason I had based this was the basis for my research. So it was hard to find stuff just through ordinary Google on the black box data. So what I did was, oh, excuse me, I need a sip of coffee. Today's been a long day. Picked up my mother at the hospital. She's home, so that was good. Anyways, so when I was having trouble finding things on ordinary Google and Bing search, I went to ChatGPT, and then I went to Google's version, which is called Bard. Now, I've used those things extensively, and they can be very helpful when it comes to finding information, but they also can be wrong. And they even say that right up front. It's basically, when you ask it something, it's going to search its data banks, and when it finds the article that it thinks is the most relative, it's going to take that authoritatively, but that article might not be authoritative. So the first one I asked was Bing's version of ChatGPT, and every time I asked it, it always gave me the same answer. I asked it if there was GPS location on the black box. Now that time, sometimes it didn't know. Sometimes, a couple of times it said yes, and other times it said no. Or it would say something like, depends on the model. So I just got a message from Tom saying that live chat is disabled. I didn't disable it. So, and obviously Tom's already commented in it, so it was set up. I can't explain what's going on. And this also gets to a strange thing where people have complained to me about being deleted, and I've never deleted any chats. And since I've had the channel up, I think I've only deleted like 2 comments on the channel, and it's probably been, you have to really be bad. Oh, Tom's got it caught up now. But if you do get deletes, guys, we're not deleting them. I don't know what's going on. I think I've used the delete button, never in chat, and I've used it maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole time. And I've had the channel up a year and a half, and it's maybe been 6 months. You can insult me and I'll leave it up. But if you have to really cross a boundary or insult somebody else in a nasty way for me to take it down. It's only happened 2 or 3 times. So I don't know what causes that. So anyways, so ChatGPT was a little vague on whether or not it would, for instance, it would say like, all right, the car does have a GPS, so that could be in the report. It could not be. I now don't think it is ever in the report, the GPS. So if Karen Read was in an accident at a certain location, I don't believe that the black box will tell us that location. Okay. Now, That would not change things as long as it's time stamped. If we know that Karen Reed was in an accident going in reverse at roughly 12:30, 12:31, 12:32, which is when John O'Keefe's phone stopped moving, then that's enough to nail Karen Reed. She won't be able to get out of that if there's a timestamp that is accurate. And that's what I've had a hard time finding. So I do have more recent updated information on that. So initially, ChatGPT told me 10 out of 10 times, yes, it absolutely is timestamped. And it would give me links to articles. So I would go to those articles, and those articles would say that the black box report is timestamped. So that seemed clear to me. But still not being 100% sure, I went to Bard on Google. And Bard actually seemed a little bit more, loquacious. It was talkative. It was trying, and it was explaining. So I asked it, it said the same thing. I said, yes, it's timestamped. So I asked it, does it, are there cases involved where the black box report has been used to nail a time in a criminal case to nail down a time? And it gave me 3 examples of cases. However, it would not give me links to those cases so I could research them myself. And it says that was against their protocol. Okay, it's fine. Well, give me the names. It's like those cases, it would describe in detail. However, it would not give me any. Okay. So it's all right. Good. Tom is my manager. All right, that's a good call. I switched it to live. Hopefully that'll help. So if anybody's out there, give us a quick hi on chat, just so we're testing to see if it's working right. But Tom made a good call, and he had me switch it to live chat. I guess it was on top chat. I don't know why. That's just what it was automatically on. So anyways, Google Bard gave me these specific examples of 3 times in a real world accident, supposedly, that the black box was used to timestamp an accident. And though it would give me a lot of details as to what happened in that accident, it would never give me specific names or even a city or anything like that. So I had literally no way to research where that evidence came from. Did Bard make it up? I mean, I don't think so, but it could have just taken it from some chat forum. I mean, I don't know where. I couldn't research it. I couldn't verify it. Okay, so I continued looking on my own, and I found a really, really interesting article. I'm going to link this afterwards. Now, let me go through this a little bit. So this is all right. This is written by a defendant. So he's defense lawyer. I'm sorry. This is written by a defense lawyer. So this is someone that, it's wired into his DNA to try to defend anything that might be used to prosecute somebody. So you have to keep that in mind. And it was also written in 2013. So that's 10 years ago. Actually, July. This was literally exactly 10 years ago. So I don't know if any of this has changed. Obviously, black boxes first became kind of publicly in most cars in 2008. So at the time he wrote this article, they were still relatively new. But there may be reasons where it's not time-stamped too. So let's keep going with what he's arguing here. So he has this is the most comprehensive data I've seen on black boxes. It's in this thing called Plaintiff Magazine. So he says, depending upon the vehicle manufacturer, an EDR, which is a black box report, can be designed to capture a variety of vehicle parameters, including pre-crash vehicle speed, seatbelt status, brake application, throttle position, fault codes, airbag deployment timing, crash duration, and velocity change. This data in the form of electrical signals is transmitted to discrete addresses in EDR from a number of different sources where it is converted into hexadecimal code. And then it shows an example of that. Now, this is interesting. In order to interpret the data, one must be able to translate this code. Currently, and again, this is 2013. Currently, there is only one commercially available translation tool manufactured by Bosch. This tool is widely used by law enforcement and accident reconstruction engineers. However, the tool has serious limitations which should be considered before translated data is relied upon or admitted into evidence. Here it is important to recognize that simply because an expert is trained in the use of the translation tool does not establish the reliability of the data being downloaded and translated. That's interesting, right? So it's not like you just plug in this thing and get it. I misrepresented it in my video because I kind of assumed that you'd get a printout of data like you would on any computer drive. But for some reason, it's not like that on this kind of a drive. Maybe because the power source of a car can be unreliable, especially in an accident. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the technical reasons. So let's keep going with this article. The second misconception is that the process of downloading information from the EDR is impartial, and that the data cannot be corrupted. So the second misconception is that the downloading the information is impartial, and that the data cannot be corrupted as part of that process. So what he's saying right there is police can make mistakes, and the data can be corrupted. Such is not so clearly he's saying that the data can be corrupted. For this reason, the parties should agree on a protocol before allowing. This is fast. Now, obviously, this is why a defense lawyer will want this, and the prosecutors don't want this. But he says the parties should agree on a protocol before allowing any download to occur. So someone like this will show up in court and say, if the state police downloaded that information without consulting with her counsel, that information should be dismissed. So I think that's what we're going to see in the Karen Read case. I mean, unless this is 10 years ago, so unless something has changed, they may even have this very expert come in, because these are pretty expensive defense lawyers that Karen Read has. So they may come in and try to get this evidence dismissed based on that. So he goes on, counsel should also make a record of the fact that by agreeing to a protocol, they are not stipulating to the reliability or admissibility of the data downloaded. So I don't know. I guess basically what he would say is you have to agree to have us there or to have a protocol for when we download it. But then also, if the information hurts us, you can't use it. So I definitely don't think that prosecution's going to want to agree to that. So a download is accomplished by connecting a laptop with a translation software to a data port. And then they print examples of this. You have to interpret what this stuff is. It has stuff like acceleration, brake speed. There's braking. There's a whole bunch of different data that goes on there, and that's where the software translates what it's reading. Now, using an outside power source can sometimes create artifacts in the download, which are completely unreliable. Again, according to a defense lawyer. So let's keep going. Okay. There can be reliability issues related to how the data is sent to the black box. In some vehicles, data is transmitted directly from the source to the EDR, but in others, it is transmitted first to a body control module and then relayed to the black box. In those systems where the data is relayed, unless the integrity of the relay can be verified, the data is questionable. So what he's saying is that if you have some kind of a central box that controls all this information, potentially that can corrupt the data. Because we have to remember that these black boxes were not designed in order to convict the owners involved in the accidents, the owners of the vehicle. They were designed to, in theory, to help do accident reconstructions to improve the safety of the vehicles. A third concern relative to the accuracy of the data involves whether the data saved to the black boxes from the accident. This is really crucial for the Karen Read case, so I'm going to repeat this. A third concern relative to the accuracy of the data involves whether the data saved in the black box is from the accident being investigated or some other event. So you remember in the Karen Read case, so the prosecution is saying she backed into John O'Keefe at about 12:30. Well, at about 5 a.m., it's on film that Karen Read is backing up and backs into John O'Keefe's car in the driveway. And that's maybe how she broke the taillight too. This is why this is such a crazy case, did she break the taillight on John's head, or did she break it in that little accident that she had that was not at high speed, but may have been high enough? I don't, we don't know. But a heavy SUV backing into glass, even at a relatively low speed, probably is enough to at least crack the taillight. So he goes on, if the data is in erasable memory, then it will simply be overwritten by the next event. All right, yeah, we know that. That's how the boxes work. So depending on the circumstances of an accident, data recorded during a collision may not have been locked, such that when the black box is downloaded, what one is seeing is data from some other event. So it's what it's going to be hard, I guess, for them to tell. And then he goes on to say specifically, the data is not time stamped. So all those sources I saw, and by the way, the sources I didn't accept ChatGPT or Bard at face value. Now, in the case of Bing, ChatGPT, it gave me links to articles, and I've saved them. So I'll put those on the website too. I think I have 3 of them, and these were all articles that said that it was timestamped. But I would say it looks like maybe those articles might have been wrong. So the interesting thing, so when I look at what happens here, so again, we don't know if it's been updated, but let's just say it hasn't been. So you look at the data, and you're going to have to try to the police are going to have to determine, was that accident. So they have a record of a collision. The way the black box works, if there's a collision over 5 miles an hour, it creates a snapshot of 20 seconds before. So picture the black box this way. The data is continuously streaming. So everything from multiple sensors in your car, it's continuously streaming. So your brake, your acceleration, speed, whether you're turning, all kinds of stuff. Apparently, though, not time. But all kinds of stuff is continually going. And it holds a certain amount, and then it just tapes over it, just like a video, one of those old videotapes. It just keeps running, unless there's a collision. If there's a collision of over 5 miles an hour, then it takes a snapshot of 20 seconds before that accident. So you get you get a snapshot of the braking, the speeding, whether the accelerating was being hit, all that different stuff, turning. So you'll get all that stuff. So what you'll be able to do is the prosecution is going to look at the accident in Karen Reed's driveway and see if it matches up to the data on there. Now, I don't know how open to that interpretation that'll be. So, for instance, you can look on that video and see the speed of Karen's SUV. And you can see not just the speed of what it was going in the driveway, but I would think you'd be able to tell how fast it was going when it bumped into John's car. If it was going less than 5 miles an hour, it would not result in a report on the black box. So that would indicate that any collision that was on there, unless there was some other accident that we don't know about, would be Karen backing into John. I don't know, but you'd be able to look at these. So the data puts out quite a bit of data. So you'd be able to look at a lot of stuff, possibly the direction that she was turning, whether all those kind of things. I don't know if you'd be able to tell from that. So, because she's turning into John's SUV in the driveway, but she probably could also be turning into John when he was on the street if she's doing a 3-point turn or something similar to that. So I'm not sure how accurately you can measure up the data between what was shown on the film and the surveillance in her driveway to the collision report. But another thing too is now it'll save up to 5 collision reports. So if you look and you see it made 2 reports within a relatively short amount of time, then you could say, all right, one of these is her backing up in the driveway, and here's another one right here. So she must have hit something else. So there may be ways that you can do it. And I don't know if there's maybe also be it's funny too. I took the more specific information that I found there, and I went back to the chat GPT and I asked it a more pointed question now that I had that information. So what I did was I started asking it specific questions based on the report. So you got these numbers in the report, and I said, what does this mean? What does this mean? And then once I had it all, I said, so does it timestamp? And for the first time, chat GPT said, no, it does not stamp the time. It's like, if you could bitch slap a computer program, you'd want to do it, because it answered that at least 10 times to me over the last couple of weeks, saying that it does timestamp. But when you set it up in the right direction, it'll finally say no. So or maybe it's learning. I don't know. So it's really interesting. So I think there's a very good chance that, well, at the very least here, it looks like there's nothing conclusive that we could say or that I could have said in that video. So I take that back about it being conclusive, the black box being conclusive. Adam Lally says it's conclusive, but for some reason it took 16 months for them to get that report. And it sounds like the defense was not part of that process. In fact, the defense had been requesting that report in many of their motions. So there's a lot of suspicious stuff there. It's all going to have to, it's same with the how long to die in the cold stuff, or the deleted messages and phone calls. All that stuff is going to have to really be argued about in court by experts on both sides. And there's no referee. The judge is a referee that will make them play by certain rules. But at the end of the day, there's no one to come in and make a call. There's no objective expert that's going to come in and say, this is what happened. She did make this search, or she didn't make this search, or the black box shows this or didn't show that. No, it's just the way our court system is. Each side gets to present their experts. So at this point, I would say there's a lot of reasons to be skeptical as to whether the black box indicts Karen Read. Maybe it does, and we'll find out. But again, it's like in this case, everything is always back to kind of square one, where it's like every single piece of question, you come out with aha, but then upon further review, it's not necessarily that. To me, it's the most important aspects of this case are the data, because clearly it was a shoddy investigation, but that could be because of a cover-up, or it could just be because the police are shoddy, or it could, and this is very likely to me, that even if it's not a cover-up, they're going to be deliberately shoddy because it involves the possibility of a cop being suspected of something, and police, they're going to be reluctant to send investigators in the direction of other cop. So it's not necessarily, it's not, it would be a whole different that's what I call passive resistance, which is a whole different level than, say, framing somebody by planting evidence, like dropping taillight glass and stuff like that, which is just, I find unimaginable. Like, why would he throw his life away risking doing that? But so to me, the key thing is the data. Thomas talking about the data of the dog bites. Absolutely. Like, where is if you can get DNA that shows, even if you just get any dog DNA on those wounds, to me, that's case over. She's innocent and something, and he was inside the house. But it's this hard data is always what most interests me. The other stuff is interesting. So, it's a strange case. How is it possible that John O'Keefe stopped moving at 12:31? And it looks like they arrived at the house somewhere between 12:21 and 12:25. And you get these strange series of calls and texts from Jen McCabe going all the way up to 12:45. And Karen Read was home by 12:41. And so McCabe is still texting John at that point, like, where are you? It's strange, but strange things happen when people are out drinking, and not everything is an indication of a cover-up. So I just don't know. So those are things that will possibly be explained in a trial, or maybe they won't. Maybe there is a cover-up. If there is a cover-up, this is, to me, is one of the most incredible cases in the history of crime, because think about all the stuff that went on. If this is a conspiracy to frame Karen Read and to cover up the murder of John O'Keefe, let's just go with that defense theory for a moment. These guys, so that theory is that John O'Keefe came into the building. Somebody attacked him for whatever reason. Maybe for no reason. Maybe there was a prior history. Maybe someone was just drinking and stupid. Who knows? But there's a fight. John is killed. Presumably he's struck on the back of the head with an object to make that terrible wound on the back that crushed his skull. Or maybe he was slammed onto the ground and his head was slammed on the back of a stair or something, or on the back of a bureau, or I don't know. a fight like that takes a couple minutes. Everybody's out of breath and it's chaotic and there's furniture tossed. And then all of a sudden, they have to come up with a conspiracy within minutes. I mean, it's just incredible. So John O'Keefe's phone was in that yard, in the snow, on the lawn by 12:31, because that was the last time it moved. So if John's body was not there, that means within minutes, these evil geniuses had to think, let's get that phone out there. Now, they are cops, so they are aware of, at least Brian Albert was a cop, and there was a federal cop in there, Higgins. So they are at least more aware of things like phone data and stuff like that. So it's not impossible. But wow, these guys have been out drinking all night, and they think to throw the phone out into the lawn for some reason to establish that John, I don't even know how would they think that was going to establish that John was in the house, because certainly they know that phone would have been tracked inside the house. So I don't even, but anyways, somehow, if it is a conspiracy, they threw that phone out and then probably waited until Karen Reed drove away, which would have been right around the same time or within a couple minutes. And then they took the body out at some point. And then they managed to get everybody in the house to go along with this. And they co-opted first the local police to kind of look the other way because they didn't go into the house. Possibly they co-opted the medical examiner, who seemed to write a report that doesn't really reflect what looks like reality to us. And then they get a state trooper to go along, maybe even to plant evidence, risking his life. If we wrote I'm a writer. If I wrote that as a script, it would get laughed out. Nobody would take it. So, but maybe it's what happened. I mean, there is a lot of strange things that have to be accounted for. And the prosecution certainly is not accounting for it in any way. They don't even account for John O'Keefe's wounds. The prosecution's theory, which is ever changing, doesn't even really do any kind of an accident reconstruction. And you have to in this case. You don't have to account for every deal, but you have to account for how he has a crushed skull, how his body was found on the lawn, 12 feet on the lawn, and how there were no other bruises on his body. It doesn't make sense. You have to account for those strange injuries, and they don't. So, but that doesn't mean that Karen Reed isn't guilty. Maybe those things will eventually be accounted for in trial. We don't know. If the trial has not been held now, some of the information that we're getting on this is biased because it's coming, almost all of it, from the defense, and they're doing it through a third party and Turtle Boy, and they obviously have some channel to him, and they're leaking it to him. And it colors our so, for instance, we come out, when we first saw the headline breaking that day, we saw right up front, Turtle Boy seized on the key piece of evidence that would turn the public in the direction of a conspiracy by talking about McCabe's Google, her search for how long to die in the cold. As soon as you see that, before you even read the rest of the data, and Turtle Boy was very smart about putting that up front and at the beginning. I think it was even in the headline. As soon as you see that, you're like, wow, something really weird went on here. There's no way that there's not some kind of a conspiracy if she's making that search before anybody really knows he's missing. And then that colors all the other evidence you see that you get. But then later on, you find out, well, maybe that evidence isn't reliable. You got one guy on the defense that the defense has hired, and he says that that's what the search was. The prosecution has Trooper Garino, who put out the report saying, no, those searches were made at about 6:20 or something like that, which was at the scene while they were trying to revive John outside. So that might explain why she might make a search like that. And so under pressure, apparently, now we don't know. We haven't seen the report. This will come out in the trial. But according to Lally a month and a half ago, the prosecution has now hired an independent expert who has supposedly incredible credentials, who affirms what Trooper Garino reports. But again, I take that with a grain of salt too. I mean, so to me, I'm just stuck with we don't know what that data is, so we shouldn't take it for granted one way or the other. That's how I believe it. And if it turns out if we could ever get a printout of that report, I'm calling it a printout or something like that, that independent data forensic data experts could look at people that aren't connected to the case and say, yeah, that search was made at 2:27, or say, no, that guy Green got it wrong. That search was made later. We don't know at this point, so we have to be ready to go either way on it. Now, I'm going to go over a couple more things, and then I'll look in the comments to see if anybody has anything about the documentary. That for anybody who's coming in late, we're up to 20 people now. I want to do a countdown where I do a live video every night. Some of them might only be 5-10 minutes. I don't know, for the next 2 weeks, because we're doing a very important, I think, documentary series to us that we're starting filming of this on location on August 1st. And I want to, over the next 2 weeks, introduce the audience to first the two people that are the subjects of that documentary. One is Dave McGrath, who you've met on our channel, and who is the writer of the book Monster: The Life and Crimes of Wayne Chapman, and also Melanie Perkins McLaughlin. So they will be with us on the first, and Dave will be with us all the way through it. I hope Melanie will be too. They both have a lot of new evidence, and Dave and Melanie has a lot of evidence that we hope she'll share, at least with Dave, and then I think with us, and hopefully with us too on film, because she may not, because she's an Emmy award-winning documentary maker. We're not. So I don't know what she has in the works. I hope she does have her own documentary in the works, because like I've said earlier, we're extreme. I'm from Lawrence. I'm the same age as Melanie. I haven't met her. I've talked to her on the phone a few times, but I'm incredibly proud of anybody from my poor city to win an Emmy. So if she's got something else in the works, I can't, we'll do everything we can to promote that on this channel for her, but also for this case, because we want to get that information out there. Because the more we get out there, the more tips always come back in. So we're going to be focusing on them over the next 2 weeks, talking about them more. But I also want to talk about the people that are on our crew. I've talked about Tom Fleming, who is going to be leading the film crew. He's a close personal friend of mine and has been for years, but he's not on the crew for that. He's on the crew for his expertise, because he's a co-owner of a video production company down in North Carolina, and he has experience in broadcasting. So he's worked with a lot of audio and video technology stuff. So we know he'll be a great asset for the team. So there's other people involved, and the door is always open for any of you that want to join us. If you want to join us on August 1st, we'd really welcome to have you. You don't have to be an expert. It'd be great if you do have some expertise, but everybody nowadays knows how to hold a camera. So, because we want to film everything continuously on that day. So we don't want to miss anything. So we want to get as much material as we can. It'll be fun. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to meet you. We think you'll enjoy being a part of our team. So reach out to me if you are interested in that at all. And that's August 1st. We'll be filming in Lawrence. We're meeting at 9:00. I'll tell you where if you reach out to me. And then by noon, roughly, we'll be heading to Bridgewater, where we're going to film at Bridgewater State Hospital, where Dave told me something that was one of the most compelling stories I've ever heard, and he hadn't reported this in his book. And I'm not sure when he told me if he realized how deeply compelling it was. Like, it's the kind of thing that, as a writer, if I put that, this is the kind of thing that as a writer, if I put it into a screenplay, people would say that's genius. But it's a real thing that happened. So it's just incredible. So you get to meet us, and we're good guys. We're not all old dudes like me. We're a mixed age. We're not all dudes. Some of us are women. So everybody's welcome, and we think we'll have a lot of fun. So I wanted to go on to something different. Look, I've said many times, I'm just an old retired bartender. I was never in law enforcement. I'm not an expert at anything. However, I'm proud to tell you that there are things that I've said that can help you get insights onto psychopathic serial killers. I can prove it to you because I have videos that I can point back to. Now, one of the things that I talked about going back in my video series on psychopaths, and this was something that's just me saying it, but I guarantee other people are thinking it. They just feel maybe a little bit like if you're a scientist, you maybe feel it's a little too hard to prove. So it's because it's too subjective. So you wouldn't want to put it out there. But I'm going to tell you about it, and you go back and you watch some video of these people, and you'll say he's right. And the other people that I've proposed this to have got back and said, "My God, yes." So when I did a series on psychopaths, and what I wanted to help people do is look at signs that someone in your life might be a psychopath. Now, not all psychopaths are criminal. In fact, most of them probably are not, but a lot of them are. So, because if you're a psychopath, you're manipulative, you're grandiose, and you don't have any empathy for other human beings. Now, those are sometimes characteristics that can be useful in certain situations, even if you're not a criminal. Like, I can imagine that might be very useful for a surgeon. In fact, there's what the hell's his name? What's the actor? Oh, I can't remember his name. Who just recently got charged with accidentally shooting someone on the set. He plays Trump on Saturday Night Live. Anyways, he was in a movie where he plays a psychopathic doctor, and it's a really good movie, and they capture it really, really well. He's a surgeon. He's the best surgeon, and he doesn't really care about his patients, but he cares about his reputation, about being the best surgeon. And what really motivates him is what he feels is the God-like power of life and death that he has over his patients. Alec Baldwin, thank you. I knew you'd come through, Tom. So it's a great movie, and he's, as far as I know, he's not a criminal in it. I've only seen scenes from it, so I shouldn't say it's great, but the scenes are outstanding. So I listed together these scenes that are, many of them are commonly studied about psychopaths. But one of the things that I noticed is this weird physical effect in psychopaths, and I call it the alien within. No, there's not really an alien within. I need a drink of my coffee. I don't mean this in any kind of a supernatural way. All right. Let me take a sip if you'll forgive me. I wish I could pass the mic on to someone for a minute. All right. The alien within is this strange physical effect that I see when I look at many psychopaths. And I call it the alien within because what I'm describing is this thing where it's almost like, when I say an alien, it doesn't have to be a Martian alien. It could be just another person. But you have this person that's almost not fully formed, almost not fully human. And you put him inside a body, a human body, and he's never fully comfortable in there. He's kind of like, it's like a little creature in there pushing the levers and stuff like that. And he's never fully comfortable. And this is why the original book on psychopaths, and still the best book today, is called The Mask of Insanity. And it was written in 1947. And the idea was, when he's looking at these guys, The Mask of Sanity. And what it is he's basically saying that these guys come across as completely sane, but they're wearing masks, because underneath it all, they're really not. Because he was interviewing these guys in prison. And of course, we now know the psychopaths that are, and you can find them just by looking at their brain under an MRI. The psychopaths that are not criminal, they're not insane either. So we need to update that information. Many psychopaths are good citizens, although obviously I'd be cautious if you have one in your life. Well, the reason these guys I speculate that the reason you have this effect where their movements are just a little bit off is because when you develop your personality and you're unable to feel emotional empathy for other people, you see them as two-dimensional characters in a video game, which is that's how I described it on my channel. And then it turns out that's how Brian Kohlberger described it in earlier texts when he was in high school. Brian Kohlberger's the killer in Idaho. And he just said that's how it felt, looking at other people, his own family. It was like they were just two-dimensional video game cutouts to him. Well, when you see other people like that, and that's all you can see, when you shine that mirror on yourself, you only see yourself as a two-dimensional cutout too. So you haven't really fully filled out your sense of personhood. And I think that comes across in their physical movements. And there may be other reasons behind it too, because the psychopathic brain, the prefrontal cortex, does not light. When you look at it under an MRI, it looks kind of like a city where there's a partial blackout. It doesn't light up fully. And so it's just, and that's something they're born with. And now it turns out there's something else that really that affects. I've reported this a couple of times here before, but I wanted to just mention it to you guys, because if you have a psychopath in your life that you suspect, you might be able to use this to test him. So when I was looking at the Jeffrey Dahmer case, it dawned on me that, wow, this guy, we famously know that he was getting kicked out of his apartment because of the awful smells coming from inside it. And in fact, a few years prior to that, his grandmother had kicked him out because of the awful smells. And these were because of he had corpses rotting around him. Well, looking back on it, in his first murder, when he was 18 years old, he took the guy and he buried him in July in the backyard under shallow earth. And then 2 weeks later, dug it up and skinned it and, enjoyed doing it, defleshed it, and then washed the bones in acid. This guy, the smell of that must have been beyond horrific. And even if you're someone that doesn't feel any empathy for other human beings, I would think that smell would just drive you crazy. But it didn't bother him. So maybe there was just something deficient about Jeffrey Dahmer's sense of smell. But I Googled it. Do psychopaths have a deficient sense of smell? And the answer was yes. It's not something that seems to be picked up on by other true crime channels that I've seen, and I look for that too, or by even profilers. It was released in several studies by psychopaths looking at the MRIs of non-criminal psychopaths. So non-criminal psychopaths have a much reduced sense of smell. There's no reason to think that criminal psychopaths would be any different. They're going to have so the smell of rotten flesh is not going to bother them. So that's something you could learn here on this channel, and as far as I know, nowhere else. So sometimes a crazy old bartender can get an insight. But back to the alien within. This came up on me recently because I looked at video of the Long Island serial killer. This is video from before he was captured, and I wanted to be able to play this here. I wonder if I can figure out how to do this. I'm going to try to figure out how to do this a little later in this when I'm about to get off, because if I screw something up on this, it'll throw everybody off. But there's an interview with him where he's doing like an interview for an architectural magazine, and it's unbelievable the way it stands out. He has these strange gestures where he gestures in a certain direction, and then he speaks like the gesture is mismatched. Is a good way to put it. The gesture is mismatched to his voice. It comes a little before or a little after, and so it looks off. And when you look at it, I mean, you watch 30 seconds of that interview, and you're gonna be like, "Oh my God!" He's that crazy old bartender is right. He has that alien within look. It's like somebody is underneath this guy's skin, trying to make him do things. It's not. I don't want to make it seem like it's as dramatic as in the scene in Men in Black when that alien landed in the craft and then took over that guy, and he's like stretching the skin. No, it's going to be more subtle than that, of course. But you'll notice it. So look at Jeffrey Dahmer. He famously walked without moving his arms. They did a great job of recapturing that in the TV series on Netflix. But I mean, it's stark. It's like you've never seen anybody else walk like that. Well, they had kind of someone like that on an episode in Seinfeld, but I've never seen it. It was so pointed the way his arms don't move. They're just right facing down. It's just like an alien is within his skin. And you see this, if you look at some the old interviews with Ted Bundy, you'll see the same thing. He's doing this kind of thing where he's talking and he's looking up at the camera and he's doing this. It's mismatched. The timing is just it's almost like you're watching a video where the sound, the audio is not quite matched to the voice. I mean, to the moving of the lips. I'm trying to put into words something that you'll see when you look at it. And now in some cases it's more subtle and you have to watch it a little longer. But if you watch interviews of psychopaths in prison, they usually do a good job when they're just kind of comfortable in talking. You might see it a little bit in some of the cases. You might still see that kind of strange movements. But when it really comes out is when they're on the hot seat. And when I say the hot seat, it's not like they're being grilled. the police interrogators are more subtle than that. They're trying to be nice, and it's kind of good cop when they do it, and they're just trying to gently get them into. But when you're making them uncomfortable because you're getting them talking about something that they don't want to talk about, it comes out even more. They start getting. Now I know all of us might get jittery under that situation, but when you see it, you watch enough of these, you'll be like, yeah, there is something there. I did a series on Peter Madsen, who was a horrific psychopath. He only had one murder, but what he did was terrible. I did a series on it. This is 4 or 5 years ago. Took a reporter. He contacted her, invited her onto his homemade submarine, and when they got below the surface, he pounced on her, bound her up, and tortured her for hours until she died from blood loss. I mean, just absolutely horrific. And then he carved up the body. Well, just the way, ironically, it was. There was another woman who had been filming a documentary with him about he was part of a program that was trying to build a rocket. And he had built rockets. He wanted to build a rocket, kind of like a poor man's Elon Musk, that could bring a human being into space. And he actually talks about psychopaths. And he says, and the funny thing is you could be with one right now when you wouldn't even know it. But when you watch his movements, you're like, there's something off. He's got that alien within kind of look to him. So I find it fascinating, and I think it's something that scientists probably don't talk about it, because how can you quantify something like that? How can you study that? It's a subjective reaction that we look at it. But I have since then watched some other shows on body language experts that talk about psychopaths, and they don't call it the alien within, but they do talk about a similar kind of phenomenon when the movements are just a little bit off. And so I think if you go and look at this stuff, I'm going to put a link to it below, to the Long Island serial killer after this video. Actually, I don't even know if I can do. I don't know. I'll put it in the comment section. So you'll see it right away, and you might say, well, maybe it's just a weird dude. All right, it could be just a weird dude, but you will see, because not all these guys are weird dudes. Like Ted Bundy came across as very likable and he's charming and good looking, and women loved him. But you can still see that something is a little bit off. Another one is, I read this incredible book, and you can see interviews with this guy, and I recommend this book. It's I think it's called The Psychopath Inside, and it's by Dr. James Fallon. Dr. James Fallon was a neuroscientist who was studying psychopaths. He was studying the MRIs. I think he was in his mid-40s, and he was a somewhat eminent neuroscientist who was ironically called in on a lot of criminal cases as a defense witness. I think they were trying to see that, like, if they were defense lawyers were trying to get their clients off by saying there was something wrong with the guy's brain. And he had already done something to the effect, investigations on that. And so what he found is that he could look at an MRI and identify a psychopath just by looking at the MRI. So as part of doing this, he had a stack of MRIs. And what he would do is he'd have ones from known psychopaths and ones from other people that were normal. And in order to get the normal ones, he would mix in a lot of his family members in there. And the idea was, when you pull them out and do tests with people, they don't know, and he doesn't know who's the psychopath and who is the normal, or who's the normal and who's the Abby normal. I'm dating myself. That's an old movie. Well, he pulled one out that he looked at the MRI and he said, oh, wow, this is the classic psychopath. That prefrontal cortex is just like a brownout in there. It's barely there. And he's like, I got to find out who this guy is, So he goes and matches it up to his data, and it was himself. It was his own MRI, which started him on a long process of, he's like, no, I'm not a psychopath, am I? Because he's never really been in jail or in trouble. He's never had thoughts of killing anyone. He's married and had 2 or 3 children, was never divorced. But then as he starts analyzing it, he realizes, holy shit, I am a psychopath. And so in this book, he goes through all the evidence that he compiles, going all the way back to his childhood and problems that he had and behavioral things. And he matched it up to numerous things in his life. And he had to admit, he's successfully married, and in his way, he loved his wife and he didn't cheat on her, but he admitted that he didn't have any emotional empathy towards her or his own children. And so one of the things that he would do was looking back, he realized that, see, the psychopath also needs stimulus. They badly need, they're low in dopamine. So they go through life kind of flat, like deadline, deadish. And they need that stimulus. This is kind of maybe why some of them become serial killers. And you can get the stimulus in other ways. So they're very fearless, and they can be risk takers. And he was a risk taker, and he would travel and do a lot of crazy stunts that would get him and his brothers or his children into serious danger. And to the point where they were getting like, you're crazy. Why they sometimes didn't want to hang out with him. Like, you're crazy, But he also, people liked hanging around him because he was very gregarious, funny guy. People enjoyed his company. But he was also a little bit dangerous. Not that he would intentionally hurt you, but he didn't care. He didn't care if your life was at risk or his own life was at risk, because he has no fear. And so he's had to kind of, now that he's recognized the psychopath within him, he's got that under control. It's a convincing book, so I recommend you read it. But when you watch the interviews of James Fallon, and there are a lot on there, again, if you watch it, you'll see there's a little oddness in his movements, the alien within. So, I mean, I think most of us that are into this true crime genre, we're looking for insights. So some of us are into it. We just want to kind of study. We want the cheap thrill of hearing about an old case where somebody dies and you experience the fear of the victim. Maybe you experience the connectivity to the victim. Because I find that most people that really, a lot of people that like true crime, they're some of the most empathetic people that I know. And I think, which seems like a contradiction, but I believe that the reason is because they feel, while they're going through the suffering of experiencing that case with the person that's with the victims, the family members, and the actual people that die, they experience a kind of connectivity to those people. And that's what people that are very empathetic, they get their reward from human connection. So where the psychopath might get his jolt of hormone from other things, sometimes pretty monstrous things, I think maybe empathetic people get it from that kind of connectivity, so they enjoy true crime. But other people, I myself, I'm just normal empathy. I feel for people, but I don't have excessive amounts of it. I'm not on either end of the spectrum. So I don't enjoy the cases because I feel, a lot of times I feel awful watching what the victim goes through. I just it makes me feel like, why would I want to experience this when I can put on an old episode of Seinfeld, Where I do enjoy the cases is the trying to understand aspect. So if I can kind of put the emotional part on hold, and so I more prefer cold cases or unsolved cases, so I can try to figure them out. So some of you guys are like that. I think some of the people that watch this channel maybe a little bit more like that too, because we're more analytical. We don't. When I am perfectly capable of putting spooky music on a video. That's not very high level, and I've got a whole file of excellent free to use spooky music, and I use it on some videos. But only on an old case like, say, Lizzie Borden, because they've been around. That there's no relatives left. I don't really generally put spooky music. I'm not trying to create that kind of an episode, so you're not going to get that out of mine. But you'll maybe get discussion. As we move forward, I want to have other experts on the channel. I'm going to be, I've got some stuff lined up with Sean Doherty. Is it Doherty? God, I already forget his last name, but I had a great conversation with him. He's a former DEA guy. And so we'll be getting a lot of guys on, and we'll have these kind of conversations. And so we're more about trying to understand what's going on. And my approach is not that I know anything, because I don't. It's just I take an approach. I take the position like I don't know anything, and I want to learn. And I'm not going to, but I question things. I'm not going to just, someone tells me this is what this is about. Okay, that sounds interesting, but I dig, and I want to find out, and I want to think it through for myself. And because a lot of times on many, many things, experts are wrong. I've learned to mistrust experts. I like experts. I go to experts first, but I also mistrust them to a extent because the experts are vulnerable to groupthink. So we've been on for an hour and 10 minutes. Just going to repeat a little bit. I'm not going to go. I'm just going to spend 30 seconds on this. In case you missed it, once again, I'm kind of a little bit of a mea culpa doing on the Karen Reed black box issue. I do believe it's possible. Sorry, I have an itch. I do believe it's possible that they will develop time data from the black box, but it's also possible they won't. And unless her SUV, that data is more advanced than what I'm seeing reported on in the limited articles that are out there, it may be trouble to actually get time. And it's not like the black box itself stores a timestamp. And also from reading an article and see that some of the stuff can be unreliable because you have a car. Well, this probably doesn't apply in the Karen Reed case, but when you have a car that loses its power source, that can affect the way this data is compiled. And then apparently, even when the investigators go in, if they're not careful about when they hook it up to a power source so they can read the data, they can alter the way that data goes through the system, and it can create what basically is a false report. So we're going to keep looking at the black box data. If anybody can, I'm trying to find an actual expert on that will come on and talk to me. I've reached out to people. There don't seem to be a lot of experts on it in the field that are willing. There don't seem to be a lot of experts on it, period. Because I don't think this comes up in too many cases. And so I'm sure there's only maybe a handful in the country, I don't know, that are true experts on this kind of data. But if I can find someone and they can come on, that'd be fantastic. I don't think our channel may be quite big enough for that, but maybe we'll find someone. So we have the documentary coming up on August 1st, and we wait for more stuff on Karen Reed. I believe there's a pretrial hearing maybe next week. I think next week there's a pretrial hearing. So hopefully those things have a tendency to get moved, but hopefully it'll go forward and we will have new information. Let me go through the comments and see if anybody has anything besides Tom Fleming. By the way, I worked hard today. I think I may have mastered how to do the live where I can have somebody else on. I'm not sure. I have to practice it. It's hard to practice these things live because people start popping in. I think I may have figured out how to do it so I can have someone like Tom on with me, and then I can drink my coffee, or if it's Friday night, my beer, and Tom can talk, and then I can talk, or we can have Dave McGrath on. I don't think YouTube allows it, as far as I can tell, but I've got my system now set up with a streaming software called OBS, and I had figured it out this afternoon, but I had already pre-set up this event for tonight, and I don't think there's any way to pre-set it up that way. The only way for me to go on is to not set up the event. So it would have to be, you won't get an advance warning. You'll just get, if it works this way, if I'm right, all of a sudden I'll go on live. So maybe tomorrow night I'll go on live at 8:00, and it'll be me and Tom or me and Dave, but there won't be any advance warning. So you'll just have to, when you log on YouTube, you may see something on there. Oh, Yellow Cottage Tales is live now. So the website is set up. Maybe I'm ready to unveil it. We're still trying to get it more professional looking, but it's functional now and looks okay. There's some cool things in it, and I have a great merch store in it. Haven't sold a lot. Don't expect to sell a lot, but I expect to sell maybe a little bit to hopefully fund these projects. The website is $26 a month just to host it. My editing software is about $30 a month. Just those two expenses right there. I'd love to just pay those off. And if we ever did enough where we could sell a little bit more, all of that would go in towards funding the documentary, every penny of it. So if you guys can go on, there is a lot of cool stuff in there, but I'm still learning how to, I've got about 30 different pieces of merchandise on there and pieces of artwork. And each one of those can be applied to all kinds of things, from cell phone covers to hoodies to t-shirts to all kinds of shit, So is there anything else anybody else wants to talk about? Tom, do you have anything you want to talk about? I'm not sure if Tom's still here. Christine, is there anything that you'd like to mention? I must have hit a bad time for Mary to come on. Usually Mary comes on with us. I know Zeke is a big follower, but he's in Australia. He's usually busy in the comment section. But if anybody wants to chip in, and because I get tired sitting, and even though this chair swivels, I do get tired after a while. So I'm ready to go and get myself an ice cream cone. What's your favorite ice cream cone? What's your favorite kind of ice cream, guys? That'll be a good question to close on. I like black raspberry ice cream. I like any kind of ice cream, but I kind of like black raspberry. So if anybody else also likes that, you can put that here or put that in the comments section tomorrow, and we'll say you're part of the black raspberry ice cream club that we have at the channel. Tom likes pistachio. All right, that's not one of my favorite, but it's good. Pistachio is good, and it's got. You know what? Pistachio is great for July too. It seems like pistachio is a great hot summer night ice cream, doesn't it? It's kind of, I don't know. It does to me, anyways. Maybe that's some association from childhood. I don't know. Christine, thank you very much. So I'll be back tomorrow, and if I have anything new, I will have something new because we're going to find new stuff, no question about it. But if anybody has any topics that they want us to talk about, when I say us, hopefully I'll have on with some guests with me if I can figure it out. But if it's just little old me, message me, reach out. I'll put, well, you can reach out on the channel, but I'll put my email right here. And I do always get back on email. There was a guy that commented on the videos before. Let me see if I get his name. His name was Jason, and he commented last week, I like your videos, but man, you got everything wrong. Facts, all your facts are wrong on this case. I said, okay, correct me. I mean, I don't want to be wrong, as you saw from this episode. And so then he said it again. And I said, I gave him my email. Eventually, I even gave him my phone number. And finally, I came back the other day from the hospital. My mom was in the hospital, and he finally had left a message on there. And he said, I've been leaving messages and you never respond. I'm like, but there was only one email. But I did respond. So we've been having communication back and forth. So I don't know what goes on. So, and I go to spam, and it's not in there. And even actually once I took his email, and after he did finally come through to me, and I searched that email, and that was the only one. So I don't know. The internet is funny. Sometimes people type something wrong, but now he can communicate with me, and I've replied to every one of his emails. So if you guys want to email me, if you have something you want me to discuss tomorrow, and by the way, he did not point out a single factual mistake that I made. So he had his own points to make on the Karen Read case, things that bothered him, and that's okay. But that's not the same when you tell me I'm factually wrong. Well, no, I just talked about different points. Those aren't the ones that you wanted to emphasize. So, but that's okay. Come on and make your points. And so he's welcome to come on and make them. And in the future, maybe he'll want to come in and talk directly with us on camera and make them. And that's fine too. So want to say goodnight to everybody. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.